Welcome back to Nothing But Nets. I'm joined with my NBA expert, Nate. Let's talk about the current state of the Nets, a couple of trades, some announcements coming from Sean Marks, from what appears to be an overachieving team right now. Nate, introduce yourself and your thoughts so far on the 4-6 Nets, which is better than almost anyone would have expected.
Yeah, I mean, most of you guys know me from Gary's channel. But this is fun. I mean, it's fun to watch. We thought, I think you and I shared this, that this might be similar to like the D'Angelo Russell type of vibes of just like a hard-working, gritty team that has a couple guys that can put the ball in the basket at an NBA level, and then five or six other guys that are fighting and scrapping to get rotational minutes and potentially earn millions of dollars in the NBA. So I like that competition, just seeing it in the rotation, and yeah, they're just like a long, versatile, good defensive team that as of right now can compete with everyone in the league.
They've lost to the three of the better teams in the league: the Nuggets, the Celtics. They lost to the Celtics in overtime, and the Cavs. All on kind of heartbreaking last play of regulation kind of games. So my first question is: first, is this kind of ideal for the Nets? Is this what you want? Go out, compete, play hard, hang in, play tough for all 48 minutes, and then lose? Or do the Nets need to kind of figure out a way to win some of these games? Because for me, it's like
No, well, they have. They have. They're four and
yeah,
six. I
you're
mean,
right. They're
you
four
don't
and
you
six.
don't have to beat the good teams. I mean, if you beat the good teams and the bad teams, then you're a good team. So like you said,
That's
you
true.
want them to lose these games. Like it was perfect tanking. Like it was down to the wire. You look like you're the better team, and then you lose on like a 12-0 run, and it looks like you threw the game at the end, which is ideally what you want if you're going to get one of the two guys I'll be watching in a couple hours at Rutgers tonight. It's that
That's
you're
right.
still covet that. You don't want that over the difference between 22 and 29 wins.
We got Ace and Hopper today. Over it's on ESPN Plus, right? You can check out ESPN Plus, or is it on regular ESPN?
Yep. I can let you know in a second, but I mean it'll most likely. I would assuming no Big Ten Plus.
Oh, it's Big Ten Plus. Okay,
I don't know if it's
Big
on
Ten
ESPN
Plus.
Plus. They have the rights. Yeah, it might be
Okay,
in Big Ten Plus. They have the
Big
rights
Ten
to it.
Plus. But that's something we want to keep an eye on.
Subscribe.
But let me segue back because we both picked the Nets to win the over, the over under their 18.5. We both said over. They'll probably win 23, 25 games, something like that. Do you still think that's the proper trajectory? Do you still think they're going to be in that, 24 and 58 kind of spectrum? Or do you think the way they're playing, the way Jordy has them amped up, they're going to win more than that?
I have to go back to what I said preseason, but I think I said over 24, 25, something,
Yeah, we said
whatever
in the
number you gave me.
we said in the mid 20s. I don't remember the exact numbers. We said 20.
Somewhere around there. I still think it's going to stay that way. Like it helps that they're trying to lose. That they're in a position where they're actively trying to get a top five pick while developing some of the players on their rosters. That's exactly what they're going to do, and that's why they're, as we're going to speak about later in this episode, get rid of a lot of the talent they have and veteran talent and role players that help you win games down the stretch in the fourth quarter. When you don't have that and it's a bunch of young guys that make one or two mistakes that lose a game, that's going to be the difference. So now maybe are they on a trajectory to get closer to 29, 30 wins? Sure, but once you get rid of, three or four key veterans, then you're probably bound to lose three or four games that you could have won down the stretch of a game.
No, I certainly agree. We're going to get into those veterans and the ones they may be looking to trade. But I do want to touch on a couple of players of note and just kind of get your thoughts on where they're at. Cam Johnson has been the subject of scrutiny on my channel since I've had a channel. I don't like his game. I've been highly, highly negative on Cam Johnson. But I want to give him credit. The last 4 games at least, he's averaged 22 points a game on almost 50, 40, 85 shooting. And he's played well. He still doesn't rebound. He still doesn't finish great, but he's produced numbers. He shot the ball better. He's been more aggressive, putting the ball on the floor. Is this him auditioning to leave? Or, I mean, has Cam Johnson turned some kind of corner? Or is this just a small little window and he'll regress back to the means in no time?
That's actually it's tough to answer, Gary. I want to say it's somewhere in between all of that. I know it's probably not a fair answer, but he's not a bad NBA player and he's not a great NBA player. But players who are of Cam Johnson's stature, I think I've told you this. Like in my opinion, when they're playing with confidence, all of a sudden they're a player you want on your team. They can help you win that night. And when they're not, and when they're the third or fourth piece on the team and they're not shooting well for a couple weeks, they cripple into a 6 foot player that we've seen him look like a lot of time. So I think he's still kind of that streaky player. With after 2 weeks of him shooting the ball bad, you wouldn't be asking me this question. He's on his 2 week heater right now where he's shooting the ball well, he's playing well, but we know that's the strong part of his game. He's putting the ball in the basket and being able to shoot the rock, and he's doing it well right now. And he's on a team where every night this could be my night. You know what I'm saying? It's Cam Thomas and who else is around him. So you play basketball when you walk into a gym and I'm one of the best guys on my team, and you're more confident lacing it up and knowing that I'm going to shoot 4 shots in the first. But you know my point of just
I get your point. Absolutely.
His team, but
yeah,
who's stealing his shots? Who he can't come in and miss 2, and who's going to look at him and say what the fuck can't? You know what I'm saying? There's no one on that team that has the stature to challenge a Cam Johnson or either Cam on the team, to be honest. So yeah, they can both play with like that freedom and confidence. Same with Schroeder, where it's like you're not worried about making a turnover and being pulled out of the game because you're looking over your shoulder and getting to see nothing. So I think that helps a player like Cam. But at the same time, yeah, I do think he's auditioning, whether he knows it or not, to get out of Brooklyn.
Hopefully, we're gonna get the trades. I also want your thoughts on the 2 other big names on the team. Cam Thomas, I've been impressed. His efficiency numbers haven't changed much from last year and the year before, but his play he seems to be moving the ball better. Jordy got on him one day for not getting enough assists and taking too many difficult shots and not moving the ball quick enough. And then the next day he had 6 assists and he's moving the ball quicker. Your thoughts so far on the progression of Cam? And we both kind of agreed, like Lou Williams kind of trajectory. Again, I don't want to jump to conclusions after 10 games, but have these 10 games kind of changed your thoughts on Cam? And do you think he can approach that all-star level?
100%. Yeah, no, credit to you. You were all over it in the offseason. If I think we talked about Bill Simmons at one point. If Bill Simmons would have listened to nothing but Nets, he would have known ahead of time that Cam Johnson can actually score at an NBA level. Lou Will at this point, I don't want to say you'd be disappointed if he was a Lou Will, but his NBA body is better than a Lou Will, and he can finish at the rim. He can take a bump or make a bump to then create a little space and take his shot that Lou Will always had to do with some type of step back or separation with his dribble. But yeah, Cam Thomas, you have to be excited about it. Again, I just made the point in your last question. He's looking over his shoulder, he's looking to his left, he's looking to his right, and so are the defenders. There's no one around him. The defenses are now 10 eyes on Cam Thomas every night, and he's still, we saw it in Boston. You see it against that's a top NBA defense. That's one of the best teams in the East. So you have to be excited if you're a Nets fan. You get to watch Cam Thomas every night, who you think at this point, like I said, he was closer to a Lou Will. At this point, you made the point of the offseason. Is he one of your pieces? You know what I'm saying? Do you now have a piece to go with whoever is coming in, top 3, top 5, and then you can grab either a free agent or a trade, and now you have, do I dare say, 3 legitimate pieces? You know what I'm saying? So all of a sudden, if Cam Thomas is a NBA scorer, a secondary scorer on a playoff team, is like that, it changes the Nets trajectory, timeline, whatever for the immediate future. And you got to be excited to watch Cam, and like I said, hope they lose to a tough 40-foot buzzer beater every night.
Yeah, it is interesting because we're both Jet fans, and our season, the Jets season and that season, by winning percentage, probably not going to be that much different. But I'm having a blast watching the Nets, and watching the Jets are a slow torture every week. It's just like when you have a veteran team that loses, it's hard to take. When you have a young team like the Nets have, where they're playing hard every day, the losing's okay, right? Like it's not ideal. I'd rather they win every night, but there's hope. Like there's something to watch with the Nets, even though they're not going to win a ton of games, and they're probably still going to be towards the bottom. The one guy I've not been thrilled with so far is Nick Claxton. He's battling some injuries early. He's back in the starting rotation now. People wanted him to take a step forward. I didn't know. First of all, he seems to be, to me, as a guy that doesn't love basketball. Like, he's good at it, so he does it. But he's never really improved anything in his game. Offensively, he's still entirely limited. He's taking, in Boston, he took 3 shots. Yesterday, Cleveland, he took 5, and he made 4 of them. They were all right around the hoop. There's no aggression. He took 1 mid-range jumper, and he hit it. It's like, ooh, there's something. But then he hasn't done it again. Where are we with Nick Claxton? Are you disappointed in him? I mean, is this the finished product? Is this what he is? I mean, he's just a guy. He's just a dunker. Offensively.
Oh yeah, this is kind of scary for a Nets fan. I mean, this is a guy you just paid, and he's giving you Ben Simmons vibes on one end of the court, and it's gonna get really bad really quickly. He obviously relies on his athleticism and defense, but at some point you got to give us something on the offense other than a lob threat. I think, not to draw a Knicks parallel, but I remember Knicks fans, you probably heard this too, being in the area or just hearing Knicks Twitter about Mitchell Robinson every year, and there'd be a video in the offseason of him shooting jump shots or him shooting threes or a crossover, and saying, we're like, you know what, and it's just like, all right, he can do that on a workout video, but he's not that, and he never is going to be that. And it kind of gets that vibe with Claxton. I mean, game by game, he's losing confidence. Back again to my last question, where it's just like he is the opposite of one of the cams on the team. There's no confidence in his game. He's just a guy that hands the ball off or screens and rolls to the basket. He's nervous to make a play. I don't know. I think you made this point. I remember him shooting more and putting the ball on the ground more his rookie and sophomore year, playing next to guys like Kevin Durant than he is now that he's paid and this is his team and he's one of the guys on the team. So yeah, this is alarming. But at the same time, it's 10 games and he was injured and he needed a little ramp up period. So I don't know if he's not comfortable with something right now that he's just has to develop into. But there's nothing good to see, and there's nothing but hope right now for a Nets fan. Like, hoping this happens, hoping he develops this, hoping that confidence comes back. There's nothing tangible evidence that you see that can say, all right, as long as this happens, I can see this happening with him. It's hoping he can turn around on that side of the floor.
I wanted to get into defensively. This team is playing with a lot of energy. There's problems. They turned the ball. They had 7 turnovers in the fourth quarter against Cleveland. That wasn't a one-off. They've battled turnovers all season long. Originally, I was iffy. I was 50-50 on Jordy. I was the same way on Jordy that I was with Salah when they hired him. But it seems to be a good fit. He seems to have him playing hard. And again, it's only 10 games. I don't want to overreact one way or the other. But through 10 games, your thoughts on the job that Jordy's done and how the Nets, the young players, are responding to him?
It's incredible. I mean, this is a roster that we are learning is built for a coach like this, because there's what he's saying in some of the post game and media availability in the middle of the week. You're not getting away with if he came into a Kevin Durant and whoever else in the NBA on his roster. So it seems like a good fit for him. It'll be interesting when he does have players of a different status, if you will, in the NBA and what he can say and get away with. But on the court, you got to love what you see. And like, this is a very difficult job to come into. This is you have pieces from all over the NBA. You had no clue what you were coming into in terms of a starting 5. We had multiple episodes that we talked about that all off season, and I think we were wrong time and time again on what the starting 5 would look like. Yeah, this is all credit to Jordy Fernandez as of through the first 10 games. You have to like the results. I mean, and then you compared him to Salah, but he is the complete opposite of Salah, it seems like, in terms of his directiveness to the players and his willingness to hold players accountable, both in front of the media and in front of their face on the court or in a timeout. So you like what you see. It reminds me of, I get all right, not the same in front of the media, but you remember when Lawrence Frank first got here, he got off to a much hotter, a great start,
They
but it was
won
the
12 in a
same
row when
vibe
he
of like
got here. Yeah.
Nets fans had the reaction like, yeah, they had it was I think one of the best, maybe the best start in their history. But it was like, what do we have in this coach? And then all of a sudden you saw it real quick and was like, okay, through 10 games, I like what I see. And obviously they haven't won 12 games in a row, but through 10 games, you're like, okay, like let's keep this rolling.
The fit seems to be good. They seem to be responding to him. Like he called out Cam the next day. Cam's moving the ball. He's called out Jalen Wilson the next day. Jalen Wilson's. He's called. And I always say you can call people out. You just better know who you're calling out, right? Like some guys you're going to call out, and they're going to respond. Some you're going to call out, and they're going to get pissed off and run away with their tail between them. You got to know your players, and he's done a good job.
Yeah, don't call out Latrell Sprewell.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. Let's see what. Go home.
Or have your hands up. Have your hands up.
Keep circling. Keep using the ring. Don't stand still. He's gonna.
Right.
So I wanted to get into that. Let's get into some of the trades. First, the trade that was rumored. I don't know if you saw the tweet, but there was a picture today of Giannis wearing a shirt of a teddy bear that had a New York hat on and it said Brooklyn on the sweatshirt. I'm going to ask you about the trade. Do you think first, do you think Giannis gets traded this season? If so, what are the odds it's to the Nets?
I don't think he gets traded during the season. I think there's a chance it happens during the offseason. Players like that with contracts like that, it seems almost impossible to do during the season. When there's money off the books, once the next season starts, it's a slightly easier with the guy who's making that much money. But wow, yeah, what a scene in Milwaukee to with Doc Rivers leading the charge there the last half season and start. It's wild. If I was honest, I mean, he wanted this. He wanted Doc. He wanted Dame Lillard. He kind of Aaron Rodgers himself into a pickle there. And now he wants to get away from it all. But I mean, they're all getting paid handsomely, so I don't feel bad. But it's kind of tough when you put yourself in that situation and you started calling the shots after you win a championship, and turns out you're not the best GM.
What is Milwaukee? Yeah, the player acting as the GM doesn't work. We saw it firsthand in Brooklyn with Kevin Durant. It doesn't work. What does Milwaukee do? I mean, that is a sinking ship to say the least. They don't own their draft pick, so tanking is out. I mean, I came up with a trade. You're a Knicks fan too. If I said to you as a Knicks fan, Giannis for OG and Cat, do you entertain that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, that's definitely the framework. It's definitely a start. Yeah.
Okay. I can't see Milwaukee getting more than that in the middle of a season, right? Like, I mean, that's a good haul you're getting, right? Knowing like you can't really tank because you don't own your pick. You still have Dame, OG, Cat. You got something there. I mean, can you compete with that team? I mean, does it kind of make sense for both teams to do that? I mean, I'm saying the likelihood of that getting done in the middle of the season is slim to none. It was just something I came up with when he said he wanted to go to Brooklyn. Like, well, Brooklyn doesn't really have a package for him. The Knicks might.
I don't think it makes as much. Like, obviously, Giannis is Giannis, right? One of one. But if you're the Knicks, they built this team to match up with one team in the East.
Boston.
And that's what it's designed to do. So pivoting mid-season and just thinking Giannis and this point guard would work when Giannis and that point guard just didn't work. And then again, you're tying yourself down. That's what it is. It's now Jalen Brunson and the money he sacrificed to play with his two friends, and Giannis and probably his brother would come along in the trade. Then you got the Villanova boys and the Antetokounmpo brothers, and that's what you're rolling with. There's and of course Mikal Bridges. And there's not a lot of wiggle room other than that. So I think obviously for the Bucks, yeah, you get an OG out of it, and you get a Cat, then you have and anything is better than what they have now. Yeah, you got your one chip with Giannis and kind of call a truce and make out of it where both sides are happy. Don't have it get too ugly.
I wanted to go back to Giannis to Brooklyn. I don't think it's realistic. I don't think the Nets have a package for him. Any package would have to include Milwaukee getting their pick back and the Nets' first round pick this year. Which let's just do the rebuild. Is my kind of thought. But Bill Simmons was tweeting about sending Ben Simmons in that trade to Giannis to kind of match salaries. To me, that's the dumbest thing. I understand Simmons would come off the books, but you still have Dame. Why would Milwaukee want to go into a full rebuild where they're now taking on bad salaries because they're expiring? I mean, is that sensible to you at all? I mean, would Milwaukee
Listen,
be
the
interested?
Giannis trade to me makes more sense for the Nets than it does the Knicks.
I just don't think the Nets have a package for it, though. What do you?
Don't, but if they're willing to listen, and even if it is with those picks, you have to start a conversation. Even if you can negotiate one of them back, or keep the Bucks pick and send them whatever it is. But yeah, like you said, they're probably gonna want both picks because they don't know who's gonna be shittier at that point. But Giannis, if Giannis was in the draft next year, he'd go number one. There wouldn't be Cooper Flag or anyone else. So if getting Giannis changes everything, and if Giannis changes the trajectory,
it does. But if you give me
you have
Giannis
him for the second half of his career, and then you have this is no longer a 2-year rebuild, a 4-year. This is an 8-year project to win multiple championships. You know what I'm saying? It's like you have I don't know. That's a player you just don't question anything. You just go. They don't become available ever.
No, again, he's one of the most impactful players ever. Right? He's on a short list of players. I get it. It's just like if right now if I put Giannis on this Nets team, what are they? 47-win team, a 5 seed in the East. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't put him on par
but
with
that's my point. This is a 4-year. You have 8 years, 6 years of his career to win multiple championships. It's not next year Giannis or bust. This isn't Aaron Rodgers and he's about to retire and he's on his last legs. This is a guy that still has plenty left in the tank. Where it just kind of soured out in Milwaukee, and if you can pounce. Like whoever gets Giannis, if they do get Giannis in a trade, they're not going to be disappointed. Like they're not, whatever you gave up, you're probably going to end up on the better side of the deal.
Well, I wasn't sure. Giannis is 29. He'll be 30 mid-season, right? I think he turned 30 in December or January, somewhere around there. So he's still got some years left. It's not like he's old, but he's trending on the back 9 of his career. How many prime Giannis years do you think you have? 3 after this? Is that fair? Like this and 3 more?
Good question. Yeah, you'd probably say 3 or 4, right? But to me, Giannis gives me the same LeBron vibes in terms of his body, and ever since he made that it seemed like he discovered the gym one summer in 2013. Then all of a sudden was like, oh, I could lift weights, and then we were just like, holy shit, did someone test this guy? He looks like Barry Bonds. So he's since then has maintained his athleticism, gained strength, stamina, quickness, agility. He's a guy that, his whole game is based off his athleticism. And the best move Giannis has in his arsenal is his long strides. I've always said that. If he can just stride, he can just Euro step. He picks it up at the 3-point line and then decides based on how you're sliding if he wants to go left or right, and 2 very slow long steps to the basket. And even if he guesses wrong, his reach is probably he can still shoot it over you. It's wild what he can do. No one else on planet Earth can play like Giannis Antetokounmpo. So if he maintains his body, I can see him closer to 34, 35. And then even at that point, it's not this isn't a Stephon Marbury where once they lose their first step and once they lose that athleticism, they lose their whole NBA game. This is
Blake Griffin.
a guy where
that was actually my next question for you. Is he a Blake Griffin?
The ultimate? No. He can become the ultimate, not role player, but obviously he wouldn't be as active on the defensive end, but he'll always be a presence on the defensive end. He'd be more of a role type player versus putting the ball on the ground, 3 or 4 dribbles at a time. He'd become probably a guy that's 1 or 2 dribbles and a finish, but no, get Giannis short rolling to the basket at 36 years old. He's still one dribble and dunk on your face. Like it's absolutely. And he's
All right.
not like it's not. We saw Shaq play late, and he had Shaq weight his whole career. Like this is a guy whose knees are going to hold up a lot better than players like that.
Even Shaq with Boston and Cleveland was still an effective player. I mean, he wasn't what he was with Orlando and Lakers and stuff, but he was still an
That's
effective
my point.
player.
I think Giannis's body will hold up a little better over the years, where he got, at that time is still a dominant force. Obviously, not like I said,
he's
not all
obviously in much better physical condition than Shaq was for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So now I want to talk to you about the players. Sean Marks came out and said that he is now interested in trading the veterans, which includes Finney Smith, Cam Johnson, Bogdanovich, and then Schroeder, and then Ben Simmons. But I can't see any situation that you trade Ben Simmons. But let's start with the two obvious ones. Cam Johnson and Dorian Finney-Smith. I said when the season started that it's a fireable offense that these two guys are still on your team for Sean Marks. Like, it's a fireable offense that you didn't trade these guys when you could because they're losing value every day. What are your thoughts on that? And have they already lost a ton of value still being here in Finney-Smith and specifically Cam Johnson, whose contract looks worse every day?
No, like I think we disagreed on this over the offseason because I thought they would still be able to trade them this season, especially come close to the trade deadline when teams think they're a piece or two away. There's still injuries that can happen in the season that don't happen in the offseason. So I still think this, and they're two players like DFS. It's almost like no matter what he does, will have the same value as he will at the trade deadline. You know what I'm saying?
I
like
agree with that.
Whether he scores 14 points or whether he scores 9 points. Whether he shoots 40% from three or 46% from three, he'll essentially hold the same value on the trade market. Cam, to me, was at a low point of his trade value last year. So I know you wanted to get rid of the contract, but there was still time, minutes, and enough talent where this could happen. What we're seeing, where Nets fans are comparing Mikal Bridges to Cam Johnson, even though we know they're not the same players, but you can look at the stats and go, 17 points a game. 46% from three. Da-da-da. So Cam Johnson had that chance to do what he's doing now in terms of like almost, a playoff team, or maybe the Phoenix Suns are looking back at their old friends saying, it'd be nice to have that shooter again. And now he'd be next to KD and Brad Beal, whatever it is. So I think it wasn't the end of the world and kind of, you made the Jets reference, but kind of Joe Douglas said, stick to a price and then hold stern until the and that's obviously what Sean Marks is doing.
Yeah, I can see that in a way. Like Finney-Smith, I agree. Finney-Smith, I like Dorian Finney-Smith. I think he has value. Like I think he has a spot, whether it's a starter or off the bench, for every playoff team in the league for the most part. Maybe there's one or two, but like every team can use what he offers you on both sides. Cam Johnson, I agree with, but the salary becomes prohibitive. It's $24 million a year where Finney-Smith's making 15, so it's considerably more. I think Finney-Smith offers you more, but there certainly is Cam value in Cam Johnson. My fear became that if he didn't play well this year, it was more of what we saw last year, that you were going to have to attach a pick to him in order to trade him. Like I'd have to give you a first, or I'd have to give you a couple seconds in order for you to take Cam Johnson off of him. It's hard to change people's perception of a guy like Cam Johnson or a guy like Finney-Smith who's been in the league for so long, right? Like they have a track record. Can Cam Johnson over the next month or two up his value? Can he kind of change the narrative and someone say, you know what, that's not a bad contract for Cam Johnson at all? Can he play up his value over the next month or two?
Yeah, that's what I was just saying. He's on a team that he can absolutely do that. I mean, hopefully he's on one of his hotter shooting streaks the next 2 months, so those numbers look good as you're going into trade him. But yeah, I mean, it's like, it's like college prospects where it's just like, he's 6'8" with a big wingspan and can shoot the ball, and coaches are just like, what did you say? So he still has those attributes that are like appealing to NBA franchises until he's like on your team every night, and you're like, oh shit, he's one of those 6'8" guys with a long wingspan. Is that not exactly what I was expecting? So like he's not Dennis Schroeder, whereas like once you rejected your 4 years 82, it's like, hey buddy, did you realize you're 6 feet tall and can't guard anyone, so you probably should have taken that money. Like he has the NBA attributes where it can still be attractive, and if he plays up to it when he'll have the minutes and the opportunity to, then he has the chance.
So the other thing was Clowney's only playing about 15 minutes a game, and Jalen Wilson's not playing a lot more. Jalen Wilson's been surprisingly good this year. Clowney has shown flashes, but like if you look at his numbers look terrible. Even though I don't think he's played terribly, his numbers, he's shooting like 35% and 30 from his numbers look terrible. But the goal was to get those guys more minutes, and ultimately, if you want to get those guys 25 plus minutes a game, Cam and DFS have to go, which is why I said it was a fireable offense, and now you're winning games. So you're winning games that you don't want to win, and you're not getting the guys the minutes where you want to get minutes. Is there pressure to move off these guys, or is Mark just to get off of Cam and DFS specifically to get Wilson and Noah more minutes, or is he just going to sit and wait for the best possible trade? Do you think? Nate? Oh, Nate froze up on us real quick.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, you're back now. I lost you.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Quick. Yeah, I can hear you now. Yes, sir. Can you hear us, Nate?
Are we back?
I got you. I can hear you. You're a little lagging, but I can hear you.
I can hear you once. All right. Say one more time about
Yeah, is there pressure? Is it urgent? No. Is there an urgency to trade Cam Johnson and Dorian Finney-Smith in order to get?
I got you.
Okay.
I don't think there's as much of an urgency as you think. Like they're not holding back like a young Scottie Pippen here. This is two players who you want to be a part of your team, but it's not too late for anything. It's not too late to be a bad team and I have a top 3 pick, and it's not too late to trade these guys and give these guys more minutes. Just because they're not going to like start all 82 games, Nets fans shouldn't be freaking out. Just because Jalen Wilson is shooting 33% on probably 33 minutes all year, like that doesn't matter right now. There's still time to do what they're doing. They're developing their culture. They're actually like, you want to play good basketball and win some games under a new coach. You know what I'm saying? It'll help the whole locker room. It will help the season going forward. So like, get off to this start and then be shitty and then tank and like trade the guys. Like this on the perfect timeline. Like then get rid of them and insert Jalen, Clowney will get more minutes. All the young guys will play. You'll lose your games and but as Nets fans, you'll be like, all right, we saw it in the season. When we had decent players, seems like we have a coach. These young guys make mistakes. So it's the trajectory and the timeline of the season is going how I would want it to go, so to speak. We're in terms of like, all right, I like what we have with the coach. Cam is playing well. Both Cams are playing well. You look like you might have a piece there. And again, it's not too late to be bad. It's not too late to suck. And it's not too late to trade any of those guys. Like none of those deadlines have passed yet.
So I wanted to ask you a question. It was reported last year that DFS was on his way to being traded back to Dallas. And they had sat him out a game, and he had thought he was traded. Something happened, which we don't know the details of, and that trade never went through. He has an ankle injury today, right after Mark said that he'd be looking to trade his veterans now. Is DFS closer to being traded than we may think?
No, it's a good point, and that's a good team too, because Luka, as we know, Luka loves DFS. Those guys are best friends when they were there. He was sick to see him go. He was his, Luka. DFS was his vet when he got there. And not only that, but I don't know if you saw Quentin Grimes is now out of the Dallas Mavericks rotation. He was supposed to be one of their, 3-and-D threats. They lost Derrick Jones Jr. last year, who was a solid 3-and-D player, who was a really good slasher for him as well. They obviously have Clay there, but they're going to need more. I mean, around Luka, you need like 14 3-and-D guys and 2 centers. So they're obviously going to be in the market, and GM Luka and GM why am I blanking on the owner's name? Cuban would obviously like Cuban as a guy to put a target on someone's back and go get him. You know what I'm saying? He did it with Kristaps and paid the price to go get him and thought that would work. And if Luka wants DFS back and that's a piece that they can trust going into the playoffs, like I said, you might get more than you could in the offseason. Now that, again, like Grimes didn't work out. They lost Derrick Jones Jr. I don't know who they're trying to replace that with, but they're pieces that don't work out with teams. All of a sudden DFS is available on a bad team. You're going to make that move, just like the Suns did with Royce O'Neal last year.
So, all right, I want to get to the other. We'll get to Ben Simmons later. Let me just real quick. Do you think that in any real life scenario that some team will be willing to take on Ben Simmons since he's an expiring contract, or are you stuck with him till the end of the season?
I mean, it's the NBA, so anything can happen. But there's like a 10% chance that something wild would have to happen. There'd have to be a scandal with a player, but where he has to get angry, like, oh, you want Ben? And they're like, oh yeah, get him out of here. It'd have to be an insane NBA scenario, which again is possible because it's the NBA, but it's not. I don't think it's going to be like for a basketball reason. No one is going to.
Sure.
You just can't insert Ben into your rotation. It's not a smooth transition at this point in his career.
As the Nets are seeing, it's rough. It's tough to use him. Although what he offers, defensive versatility, he can handle the ball. I don't know. I want to say, like, given his size and his athleticism, he's got it used in the NBA. It's hard to just put him in your lineup. He's not a guy like DFS where you can just kind of plug and play him, right? Like, I mean, there's a lot that goes into playing.
And it's like when you're a player like him that relies on aggressiveness and like give a shit factor, and he has lost all of that. He lost all aggressiveness and he lost all of his give a shit factor. Like, he's not just like 3-and-D guy that can just stand there and just pout and shoot threes and just make him and shut up. Like, he relies on his confidence, aggressiveness, getting to the rack, playmaking, and like, but you don't have confidence and you don't give a shit and you are thinking about the Met Gala and not your game tomorrow, you're done. Like, you're done. And you're making millions, so it doesn't matter either way. Like, he's checked out.
Was New York City the wrong place for him to go? Would he have been better off if he was in Oklahoma City or something like that, or Memphis?
No, he was. It's a mental. He's
good anyway.
Oklahoma City. He's just flying to other places. He's not. No, it didn't matter. There was no saving him. Once he got paid, he lost his love of the game. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't love the game as much as he ever did. He lost his love of the game, and he has a lot of money, and he has other passions in life, and God bless him.
He's taking a paycheck though, and a very large one too, to give no effort, right?
He's not breaching the contract. It sucks. Like I said, he just lost.
I guess not. Like, the spirit of the law, he is. I guess, like, legally he's not, but like the spirit of the law, he is breaching the contract.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It's just you could show up and not be aggressive and not give a shit and be a really bad NBA player every night,
which is what he is at this point, unfortunately. The other two guys, Schroeder, and Bogdanovic. Now, Bogdanovic hasn't played yet. He was just traded, 8 months ago to the Knicks for some value. Now, he's been injured since. And he hasn't played much. He didn't really play well with the Knicks. Could you trade him? Is there, can I get something for him, or is this a potential buyout in Bogdanovic?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a toss up. He hasn't played at all, but the last time he did play, outside of that little blink with the Knicks, he was a legitimate scorer in Detroit, and he developed into that in his career. So, like, are you talking about like a second round pick?
I'll take it. Yeah. What can I get for him? Can I get a couple twos for him? I mean, what can I get for him?
Yeah. If you're going there at some point, yeah, I think someone will just like look what the Knicks did. They gave up something for him. It didn't work out at all. He didn't even he didn't play, and then they no one's worried about it. So yeah, you can get something, for him. Absolutely.
Then now Schroeder is playing at all-star type numbers. Now we know he's going to come back down to earth, right? Schroeder is what he is. He's a good scorer, but he's basically a backup guard for a good team. He's going to have value, I would think. I would think there were playoff teams who would look at him and say, I can use him. What do you think the possible return for Schroeder? Now, again, he's like you said, he's 4'10" and can't guard anybody. Possible return for Schroeder. I mean, they traded Dinwiddie to get him, which we thought the Nets got the better. I mean, there's some value there, right? I mean, the Nets can get something for Schroeder.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to get a first round pick, but
yeah,
if you could, Sean Marks is good with scouting, late first round talent, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? And developing that guys in that area. If you can target a guy, and I'll have to come more prepared with a better list for you next time, and say, that's a guy
in a minute. Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? That's a young guy. We want to trade for, and go for him in a second round pick. Then it's possible. I don't know if say I don't know if it's Max Christie on the Lakers, right? I'm not saying that he's going to be a good player, but that's a guy who a long good guard that people saw him in the G League and thinks he's stuck behind a rotation and not going to play next to LeBron. Whatever. Put whoever Sean Marks has his eye on. And obviously, if that trade can be facilitated for that young piece that has a couple years in his contract, and you think he can fill a role for you next year, and obviously a team like the Lakers would probably love to have Schroeder back. Even Schroeder, you love him because he doesn't need to be in your rotation for the playoffs at all, or even in your game plan. And if you're down 15 in the third, you can just say, fuck it, Dennis. And bring him up and just he might get you back in the game. You know what I'm saying? He's just that type of player.
I had two names I wanted to throw out at you. The first one, if I said Jet Howard, Orlando, he's got a connection with the Wagner twins. Jet Howard and a couple of twos. Is that something they would entertain?
Wait, isn't Jet Howard Juwan Howard's?
It's his kid, yeah.
Son?
Yeah.
Isn't Juwan Howard on the Nets?
He's an assistant on the Nets, yeah.
So you're trying to get your Brunson little thing going
kind
over
of
here in Brooklyn. With
a poor man's version of that. Yeah, a little bit.
I mean, yeah, I'd have to watch more Jet Howard, but the point is, hopefully the GM knows more than you and I to set your sights on a guy, and yeah, whether it's Jet Howard or Max Christie or another 30 name you're going to give me, and be right. It's worth the swing. It's worth the swing.
Yeah,
there's nothing Dennis Schroeder is going to do for you in February that a pick and a young guy can't possibly help you out in 2025.
The other name I like a lot, and I want him here, is KJ, Kenyon Martin Jr., KJ.
You're going for all the nostalgia here, huh?
Yeah, we're going nostalgia. I like above the rim players. He's 23 still. He hasn't gotten a ton of opportunity in the NBA. I love his athleticism. I think he can defend multiple positions. Kmart is to me a guy that should have some rotational minutes for you because he offers you a lot. He's got a lot of versatility. He's a super athlete. It's a guy I want here. Would they be willing to part ways with a guy like KJ, Kenyon Martin Jr., to bring a veteran in like Schroeder?
Listen, teams comes to playoff deadline, and when they're close to a locking in that seed, they'll do a lot just to lock it in. And Kenyon Martin Jr. is not a player you would say no to if you think you're getting a legitimate playoff piece that can help you fill seats and get you that playoff money. So, yeah, that's not a guy you would hold on to and say no and then miss the playoffs because of Kenyon Martin Jr.
Okay, I mean, so
I think it's feasible. Absolutely.
If we can get that level of player, a young guy with upside like Jet Howard or KJ, I'm good with that. I think that's good value. My problem is that it's just Sean Marks' way he assesses the team. Last year, we could have tanked the season and gotten good value for DFS and Cam, but he thought it was a playoff team. And I looked at the roster last year and said, okay, you're better than Detroit and you're better than Washington. After that, you're not really better than anybody. So, and he fired Jacques thinking that this is a playoff team. It's you're grossly overestimating this team.
Yeah, but Gary, you have to realize in my opinion, there's some perspective because if you were the GM too, you're a prideful guy too. That's your job is to put a team together that was supposed to win, right? You made the trade for Mikal Bridges. The same thing. We're both Jets fans. You referenced this earlier. Same thing with Zach Wilson and why he was the backup quarterback last year. It's you made him the number 2 pick. You wanted to show conviction and keep him on the roster because you don't want to look like a fool. So you made the Mikal Bridges trade. You're the one who okayed Ben Simmons coming here and thought that could turn around. And now you have this former All-Star and this guy who's Nets fans were hyping up and, a transitional superstar in Mikal, and then we'll have these pieces. So, and he wanted to, obviously you want to look good, you don't want to look like a fool. And it seems like you got, and all right, yeah, Mikal isn't the player I thought he was. And, the whole Ben Simmons thing didn't work out. And all right, now I'm going to tank the whole season and look at memes on Twitter for the next 3 months. So at some point it's like his role and his job is to try. And he's going to be a prideful guy. And when you made those moves, you're going to want to stand by them, whether right or wrong sometimes, where you probably put your emotions into it and can't look back and say, all right, Zach Wilson was a mistake. Let me just ixnay that and get a backup quarterback. And all right, Mikal and Ben are not a playoff team. And if they are a play-in team, and it's just not worth it. Let's scratch this and trade the value we do have and move on to 2025. Sometimes it's hard to look in that perspective when your job is almost as a GM, like he's a former player, your job is it's still a competitive job, and your job is to build a competitive team and to compete every night. It's hard to just say, all right, this didn't work after 20 games. That's my take.
No, I largely agree with that. Having Sean Marks spearhead this rebuild scares me. It's not that I don't think he can assess talent. I think he's going to panic and trade away all these picks for Julius Randle or something like that. My God. I just can't live with, what did you do? But I appreciate your time, Nate. Thanks for hopping on. Just give me your last thought on the Nets and how this season kind of finishes for the Nets.
I said that you want to root for Cam Thomas to become a star, almost a player that you can rely on in your starting lineup that can get you 20 plus a night and be a threat both in the pick and roll and with just demanding so much attention from the defense and lose every night by a buzzer beater. And for immediate future, you want these veterans to play well so you can trade and get the most value, and then insert the young guys and hope they can fill those shoes.
Appreciate your time, Nate. It's always a pleasure having you on. Thank you for your time.
Anytime, Gary. We'll talk to you soon. Go Nets.